in the solar was great. There's times when I thought my life was coming to end and you had to bail like mad. The pluses were if you got down as far as Pompey Harbour, which is Portsmouth to you, if the tide was in the wrong direction to get into Portsmouth Harbour, there was a nice pub with a lovely slipway which you could tie up and wait for the tide to turn. So that was a bit of light relief. And the run ashore from Leon Solent was lovely. You'd get the bus to Gosport, the ferry to from Gosport over to Pompey, and let's say it was a nice run ashore. When you were in the whaler crew, we used an old NTB to change that was tied up in the harbour. And you know that, yeah, I think you can move on, yeah. Right, having done the stint on a squadron, and then another long stint in workshops, they thought, oh, we'll make you a leading Wren. So that's back to the schoolroom. And by this time, HMS Ariel had moved from Warrington to Winchester. So it's back to school and workshops. That was the first introduction to learning to be leading Wren. Well, they'd given us a £3 hammer in our toolkit. Now, why would a radio mechanic need a £3 hammer? I don't know, but I had one. We had, one of the first things we liked to do was make this brass, I'll pass it round, and the dovetail joint had to fit perfectly both ways. Mine didn't, so I think I got 6 or 7 out of 10 for that. And then we also had to make a spanner out of mild steel. Now it was quite interesting drawing it because you wouldn't think the jaws of a spanner are so many arcs of a circle. So it was fascinating drawing, but darn hard work transferring it to mild steel. I don't know what happened to that, it got lost. But the only useful thing we had to do was building a cage of little strips of metal, a 3D cage, to test your soldering skills, and you had to be pretty quick, because if you weren't quick enough with the soldering iron, the other end had melted and it all would do that. And we went back to the schoolroom, and highlights of the morning was the naffy wagon coming round, where you get your wad, which was you in the services will know what a wad is. We used to do rifle training, so that we could patrol the perimeter fence if any intruders came in. We also did training on what to do in a nuclear war, which was quite, in 1951 was probably on the cards. And you know, if anybody here has been in the Navy, when colours are sounding, you never get caught out in the open, because you have to stand to attention while they raise or lower the flag. And if it's not very good weather, it's not a good idea. So that if you knew colours were sounding, you made for the nearest place undercover. Highlights also was when the field gun crew were training, when we used to have the Royal Tournament. And it was rather nice to have all these hunky men, all muscle and brawn, training. But it was a brave Wren who accepted a date for many of them. Very brave. And that's about it, actually. On from that workshops I learned about magnetrons and klystrons as well as Wheatstone bridges and that. And the only useful thing now is that your microwave is worked by a klystron. But don't ask me to repair your microwave. Well, that was it. I became a leading Wren. But I also met my husband while I was churning all this brass stuff and mild steel. And because I decided to get married, the Wrens didn't want me. Now, these days, that doesn't happen. They have married women, they have mothers in there. It's different. I told you it's how life and the services have changed. So because I wanted to get married, I had to leave the Wrens, which is very sad. But it has changed my life. And it was a good 3 years. Now, if you ask my opinion about whether women should be on board ship, I'm definitely against it. Because today it's more technical, but in my day, a lot of brute strength was required for lots of the jobs on board ship, and women haven't got it. And if there's a crisis, a man would help a woman, which would delay I'm getting political here. But as far as women on submarines, I think that's a no-no. I have forgotten to tell you about my life while one day at sea, have I? No. Me on Solent had one day at sea. When there was a carrier moored in Solent, and Chief Wren again said, my girls are going on board ship, they're going to look smart. So you will wear your number ones, which was a skirt and nylons. We had nylons eventually. Well, to get on a carrier, we went out in a tender, and there was a rope hanging down the side which didn't reach quite into the tender. So we had to sort of leap for that and then climb up this ladder up the side of the ship. When I tell you we're wearing skirts, not trousers, why that carrier didn't heel over was certainly less to port, because I should think every matalo who wasn't on duty was leaning over the side watching all these Wrens in tight, short skirts climbing this ladder. It was quite a day, I think that's about all I can say. Thank you for listening. Try to answer any questions if anybody's got any.
Did you use your skills after you left the Wrens?
No, because I got married, had children, and by the time I wanted to get back into the workplace, radio technology had moved on. We'd got transistors, valves had gone out. All the aircraft I worked on were in museums. All the radios I've worked on are in museums. It moved on at such a fast pace that if you're out of the system, you've got so far behind, it's very difficult to get back in again.
Could Wrens be posted overseas?
Yes, there were a few Wrens in Singapore at the time, and there was a few in what was Ceylon. But they tended to be meteorologists and writers, which were, the office people. And, we weren't allowed to work on jet engines, so there was no way we could, radio mechanics would go abroad.
Did you work alongside male radio mechanics?
Oh, yeah.
It was complete intermixing. I mean,
Yeah.
duty-wise.
Yeah, duty-wise.
Did you get paid to sing?
Duty-wise.
There was a tendency to be more women radio mechanics because it was a second line squadron. All the male radio mechanics were on the front line squadrons. We had Sky Raiders, and there was a few Fireflies around and Sea Fires. but you know, it was the beginning of jet aircraft, and that's where all the male radio mechanics were.
What was the carrier you went on?
Do you know, I can't remember. I was so petrified at climbing up this from a bobbing boat, a swinging ladder in a tight skirt.
I can tell you what the hammer was for, by the way. I was the radio making the signals, and you had a small hammer which you hit the radio with
Yeah.
and sent it to the remit. And they would then hit it with the large hammer and said, get a new one.
Ah, that. Well, I never used mine, not even in anger.
Have you met up with any of your friends?
Yes, this was 4 of us on the picture, and one married, went to live in America, but the 3 of us still are in touch. And we had a 50 years reunion since we joined, but unfortunately it happened, we didn't meet because one of us had flu, but it happened on the day of 9/11. So we were rather relieved that one of us did have flu, but we had it the following year.
You did.
And we had one last year, I think, for 60 years.
Where do they live?
One's up in Scotland and one's still in Winchester. And funnily enough, the one in Winchester is living just down the road from the pub that we used to go for our run ashore in Winchester.
Okay.
Yeah, full circle.
That's good.
Did you marry a naval chap?
Yes.
Yet?
My husband was also a radio mechanic, and we went back to Culrose. I went back to Culrose, married with children, and he was head of the transmitting station on the Lizard. There. But then you see, he got, in those days when a squadron went on a carrier, they went on a carrier for 2 years at a time.
Yeah.
And so that if, you know, a Matelot went and his wife was expecting, the child would be nearly 2 when he came back. And there was none of this flying home for, you know, for leave and that. When you went for 2 years, you went for 2 years, especially to the Singapore stations. Life has changed dramatically.
Anybody else got any more questions, please? Come on, you must have something.
Just ask.
Thank you for being a good audience.
Thank you very much.